gymnastics, a sport a lot of girls have tried at least once in their lives. Few stick with the sport and even less make it to the top levels. Starting at level 1 all the way to level 10 and elite, young women push their bodies to the limits. Over the years, gymnastics has become more competitive. The form is cleaner, equipment has changed, leotards have become more spectacular, and the skills have become harder. Young gymnasts aspire to go to the Olympics or to go to their dream college and compete with the best. But how do they become a college gymnast? They have to be noticed by recruiters. College coaches travel all over the world seeking out the best gymnasts. They visit gyms and high-level meets in search of these gymnasts. But what does it require to be noticed?
So the basics of recruiting are basically that, here we are at the University of Michigan, and we're going to go out into the country because at University of Michigan we recruit everywhere and anywhere in the country, and we're going to seek out the very most talented athletes, gymnasts, and the very most talented students.
The purpose of recruiting is to find prospective gymnasts to become part of the recruiter's team. These gymnasts will replace a graduating class. Gymnastics programs have 12 available scholarships to offer possible recruits. Coaches distribute these scholarships among the 4 classes from freshmen to seniors. With limited scholarships per class, coaches have to choose carefully on whom they offer.
When we're recruiting student athletes, we're looking for athletes that are going to make our team better on all 4 events. That is the primary thing we're looking for. Our goal is obviously to win a national championship. We know what kind of routines it takes to accomplish that. And as we're out there looking at these kids, we're trying to find athletes that we think have the potential to provide us with that level of routine.
To find prospective gymnasts, coaches have to look in various places, from the comfort of their own home to flying across the country.
After you do it for a while, there are certain places in the country that there are clubs that continually produce high-level athletes, and so it gets easier because you kind of keep going back to places that produce high-level athletes. But in general, you just go out into private club gyms and you go out to competitions, invitational type competitions, and you watch a lot of gymnastics.
Mostly one of us, Bev, Scott, or I, will be at every elite competition. Mm-hmm. That's kind of one of those things that you have to be there. But I think it's great now, like even the practice days are streamed live. Mm-hmm. So it's amazing the amount of information that we now gather from social media.
College gymnastics recruiting has changed over the years. From how involved colleges and coaches were in the process, to the amount of money spent, to how social media has become more prevalent. Bev Plotke, head coach of Michigan Gymnastics for 25 years, was a collegiate gymnast herself.
My recruiting process was very different because when I was recruited, there was no such thing as an official visit. So my parents paid for all of my visits. So we went out and basically everything was initiated by us. We did the phone calling. We went out and kind of pursued the schools. And, now today it's a very different thing. The universities initiate the contact, and the universities talk to the coaches and pursue the recruitment process.
Thanks to social media, the amount of gymnasts and where they're from has been able to broaden. We're now not only able to recruit nationally, but internationally. Because of the expenses recruiting internationally calls for, such as phone calls and plane tickets, social media allows an easier way of communicating.
So because, telephone calls and that kind of thing are very difficult and expensive, but, social media is free. And, we have a young woman right now that the only way that we're able to communicate with her is via, Facebook messaging. And that makes it simple and easy, and it's a great way to be able to communicate.
Obviously, with the greater distance, getting there to see them on a regular basis, or them having access to coming in to see us on a regular basis, it becomes much more costly and therefore a much more difficult endeavor for many of those families to perform. I think that it allows us to just an additional avenue for communication, for us to get to know them and for them to follow what we're doing here as a team and feel a little bit more attached and a little bit more part of it, so that they feel they're more informed when it comes time to make a decision.
It feels like they're close. So, like with India, who also speaks English, that made it really easy. To talk to her on the phone, it's easy. But she posts and posts and posts on Twitter and a lot on Facebook. And so it's like you really get to know them a lot better. So I think the world is getting smaller because of social media.
With all the freedom that social media allows, the NCAA still has a series of strict rules that the coaches must follow. But the NCAA isn't all that teams have to worry about. The teams must also maintain a positive image and abide by those guidelines as well.
So there are very distinct things that can be done and things that cannot be done. So in some ways, yes, there are things that are sort of out there that can be seen, just can't be directly communicating, but you can still see things that are out there that are open to the general public, basically.
It's within the rules. And the rules have changed. First, they didn't allow us to friend them unless they were, I think, a senior. So now the rules allow us to friend anybody. We just can't instant message with them. So I think that it's all well within the rules. I just think that if you're smart, like I think we're very smart, we use what we can to our advantage. And information is power, so the more we know about these young ladies, the better.
With social media so prevalent in recruiting, the coaches themselves have to stay up to date and actively participate online. Michigan now has assigned staff for varsity sports to help keep the sports active within social media.
So a large part of my job in terms of social media is managing my teams, which are women's gymnastics and men's swimming, are managing their Twitter accounts, their Facebook accounts, which they both have separate ones of each, and then we have a larger University of Michigan Athletics Instagram account, which all the sports use. And then from my actual job is to media relate for the teams and act as their intermediary between the team and the media to pitch stories and coordinate interviews and stuff like that.
But you can see something about us almost every day. And you can learn about our personalities. And I think the University of Michigan is a very different place. I think there's a different kind of athlete, a more intelligent athlete, a more committed athlete maybe that comes here. And I think that we want people to see who we really are.
And that's the only reason that I have those things, is because I will post things about my team, my athletes, things that we're doing, cool things about our team going on a Cancun trip or, winning a Big Ten championship. So it's a way for us to kind of show the fun side of what's going on in our sport, and the human side of what's going on, sort of an insider's look at our program for all the recruits out there to be able to see and hopefully become interested in the University of Michigan through seeing some of those things.
Everything I put on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, Instagram, I've just been posting tons of video this summer. I share that with my Twitter feed. My Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is about my job. It's presenting who I am to recruits. That's it. It's strictly it's not a personal thing. I don't comment politically. I don't comment about a lot of things because that a lot of people use those websites for, the social media for. I'm just mostly use it professionally.
Recruiting usually takes place in an athlete's junior and senior year in high school. Senior year, the athletes would have an official visit. This is a visit paid for by the school that the athlete has committed to. But in recent years, the recruiting age for women's gymnastics has been getting younger, now recruiting in their freshman and sophomore years. Social media has allowed the coaches to view a broader range of gymnasts. Has it played a role in why recruiting age is so young now?
I don't know if social media has instigated that, but it's become a part of it. I don't know if it has led the charge in that, but it's definitely a part of how recruiting is happening.
I think that it's not the reason that we're recruiting younger. I mean, the reason is that other universities figured out that it was legal to do it, and have figured out ways around some of the rules of communicating. But I do think that it plays a role in that it helps me get to know them.
I really think that it's a separate issue. I think a number of years ago, one particular school had all of their commitments by the beginning of the summer. This was back in the day when we recruited kids between their senior year. We would start out recruiting them by we would see them in competitions during your junior year. You really didn't pay much attention to them prior to that time, but during your junior year, you would watch the meets. In the summer between their senior year, on July 1st, we could begin calling them. And July 15th, we could go out, see them, and do an in-home visit while we were there. And that was our primary method at that time of getting our information out to them. We did send emails, and you would send letters, but that was really your opportunity to get your face in front of them and give them an opportunity to get to know you as a person, and for you to get to really see how they and their family and everything else, kind of interacted, so you got a little bit better feel for them at that time. And they would come out on an official visit in September, and they would make a decision at the end of September. So the whole process used to take about 4 months. And then, like I said, somebody at some point in time got all their commitments early in the summer, and so everybody thought, wow, what a neat idea that is. I want to do that too. So the next year, people started doing that, and then it kind of starts to become a competition where everybody wants to get their kids earlier. And it seems each successive year, the time frame that you're getting your commitments has advanced 2 to 3 months. And now that we're several years into it, now we're down to the point where instead of getting commitments from kids after their junior year, we're getting commitments during their freshman and during their sophomore years. And we're going to start, in that situation, we obviously need to be, watching the kids in 8th grade and 9th grade to determine who we're interested in pursuing to get a commitment. That's what I really think has kind of driven this whole thing, is that I don't know. I mean, social media is a method for learning a little bit more about these kids, but I don't think that's been the driving force behind what's made it earlier.
Due to the age drop, it is becoming more difficult for coaches and teams to keep in touch with recruits. Instead of staying in the dark, social media provides an avenue for the recruiters to stay up to date on prospective gymnasts.
Because everybody uses it. Us old folk, when we get a Twitter feed or whatever, even though we don't know how to use it as well as they do, they will link up to us because they all know how to use it. So it has connected us with some of these young gymnasts that we may or may not have ever connected with because they have found us. They have connected with us through some of these social media links.
It makes it a lot easier for us to get to know what is really going on in these kids' heads and what kind of people they are. Like I said, the internet stuff, that certainly helped with being able to see the quality of gymnastics, but learning a little bit more about them as a person.
I mean, before you only knew what their coaches told you, and then we used to utilize a phone call to try to access information about people in terms of what their personalities were like. We would call them. We're allowed to call on July 1st between their junior and senior year. Now we get so much information. This generation loves to tweet every emotion that they have. So whether it's Twitter or Facebook, I mean, we just get so much more information about personality. We're not just looking at gymnastics, we're looking at gymnastics and personality.
With recruits being so active in social media, it makes it easy for coaches and teams to evaluate their personalities and form opinions of the gymnast as a person rather than just an athlete. This is one of the determining factors if a college coach will offer a gymnast or not.
Positive image is so important because that's what people see. People see on your Twitter and Facebook pages what you want them to see. If you're posting good stuff and your message is right, that's how people form their opinions.
I made sure not to put anything that might have risked my chance of getting recruited or would have been looked down upon in Michigan.
If I can go on and type in a name and pull up Susie's Twitter account and go on there and look and see what she's been tweeting, what she's been saying, I can learn a lot more about her that way because it's a little bit more of an unfiltered format than the information I'm going to get talking to her coaches, or if she comes on campus talking to her. Obviously, they're going to be putting on a little different hat.
I think you should be aware that you're representing not only Michigan, but just the status that we hold here, and as a person, you don't want people looking at you doing something that you shouldn't be doing or something like that. Our coaches always emphasize you're the older girls, the younger girls look up to you. So a lot of people look up to us as gymnasts, but also just because we're at Michigan and we hold such a high standard.
If I see a recruit that is misusing or posting things that I think are inappropriate for the age of that particular student athlete, or I think are just inappropriate in nature, absolutely it would affect whether or not I would recruit that student athlete.
Image has always played a part in sports. A positive image and attitude is the ultimate goal for every team, but it is a two-way street. Coaches will evaluate possible recruits to see if they will fit in with the team, and vice versa, for the recruit to feel at home and that the team will be a good fit for them.
And that kind of goes back to the first thing about you always want to publicize the university in a good light. And the more that you do that, the more people it's going to reach. And, maybe indirectly a 14-year-old, 15-year-old who loves Twitter is on there and keeps seeing tweets from us that, highlights a lot of positive stuff, and that maybe could grow in the back of their mind.
That's the point, is we want people that are a good fit. We want people with a really wide range of personality also, so we're not looking for the cookie cutter person to come here. But we do know that we have certain values that we hold really deeply, and that's what we're trying to sort through.
Fit is a very important component, I think, of success of a student athlete here at the University of Michigan. And if I see something in social media that causes me to think that there's a concern for whether or not somebody's going to fit within my program, then I'm probably not going to recruit that student athlete.
I don't know that all programs feel this way, but for us, that fit is so important. Some programs have the philosophy that they don't really care whether their athletes fit together. They just want the best athletes to come together and compete together, for the school 13 times a year. Our philosophy here has always been that we want a strong team chemistry. We want this experience not just to be about winning championships, but about growth and about fostering friendships and fostering communication and teamwork. And to that end, we pay a little bit more attention than some teams do to the personalities that we're bringing into this program, because obviously it affects everybody's experience while they're here.
That was one of the things that I looked for as I was recruiting. It just felt like you guys were very professional. I didn't at any point feel that's really weird, why would you do that? I'm a recruit or something like that. I always noticed that you guys were making sure that you were representing the school in the right way.
Once recruits commit to a university, coaches and teams must maintain a connection. This has become more important because of the drop in recruiting age.
So I think once somebody makes a commitment, I believe they tend to follow us on Twitter and Facebook, and it's a little bit easier way for us at that point to let them know what's going on, because they're committing so early. We're still not able to communicate with them via email or via written mail or phone calls or anything like that at that point. It gives them the opportunity to kind of follow what we're doing, without us trying to figure out how we can get that information to them in another fashion.
Right now, the girls that are committed who are a couple years out, they all are on group texts. They are all support each other in social media. They all tag each other in posts and all of that. And I think that also connects them to the current team. And like I said, obviously with texting is not social media, but in terms of the ability to communicate with somebody instantly. And then it's the same thing with when somebody posts something, everybody sees it and likes it, whether it's Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. It's just a way of connecting everybody. one thing about the early recruiting that I see as a real positive. You used to walk in and not know anybody and not have talked to anybody. These guys talk all the time. So maybe not face to face, maybe not on the phone, but you were still communicating.
If I had questions or if I was like worried about something, I could just send them like an email or like chat them, whatever, text them. And I don't know, it was just like a good way to keep in touch. Like at least for our class already, like we have a group chat going on, so like we all like already know each other and we haven't even been in the same room together yet. So like, I don't know, it's pretty cool.
Ultimately, social media aids in the recruiting process and helps recruit feel a part of the team's community, and helps connect them to their fellow classmates even before they are able to meet in person, and helps create a more comfortable atmosphere for the freshmen. Everything is not brand new. A small family is already there waiting for them.